The channel DRSN here. Today's basketball lecture, we are turning back the clock to the very beginning of the modern basketball, modern professional basketball, before Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, or even before Kareem or Michael Jordan or LeBron. There was George Mikan, the NBA's original and first superstar. But we're going to break down his NBA career by first looking at his vitals and his basic profile, followed by a breakdown of his playstyle. Then we'll dive into his career defining moments, examine his massive impact on the game, including the rules that changed due to him, and wrap up with a conclusion and sources. In the conclusion, I'll state why he should be mentioned with the greatest players of all times. With the other greatest, he's not mentioned. Looking at vitals, George Mikan stood at 6'10". He weighed 245 pounds. Jersey number 99. Played for the Minneapolis Lakers before they were in Los Angeles. Before they moved to Los Angeles, they were in Minneapolis. So he played from 1947 to 1956. He was a giant among men in the era where the average player was smaller, so he had a height advantage. But across his career, he averaged 23 points, 13 rebounds, and he still shot 78% from the free throw, which is good. But it's his trophy case that really tells his story. Mikan is a 5-time NBA champion across the NBL, the BAA, and NBA. So those were the leagues. That's what the league was called before it turned into the National Basketball Association. A 4-time All-Star, 3-time scoring champ. Yes, he has scoring titles. And a first ballot Hall of Famer in 1959. But simply put, if Mikan was in the league, your team was usually playing for a championship in the late 40s, 1940s to the early 1950s. And not many people bring this up, but before Kareem did his skyhook, George Mikan was doing the skyhooks before. Let's look at his play style now. So Mikan's primary strength was his pure, unadulterated interior dominance. He possessed a lethal hook shot, meaning he could score over your shoulder or with equal comfort using both his right and left hand. I saw his highlights. I saw clips of him where he did outlet passes like Kevin Love, similar to Kevin Love. Combine that with his physical strength, and he was an unstoppable rebounder and a good rim protector because of his size. But his defensive stats weren't officially recorded, so he might have gotten blocks and steals, but that stat wasn't recorded during that time. But if we look at a weakness, or we'll look at the era context, Mikan wasn't a modern fast break center running the floor on 7-footer wings, because the game was so intensely physical under the basket during the past. He often played and had heavy foul trouble, so he got a lot of fouls. But in the half court, nobody can match his touch or his basketball IQ. Let's talk about his career defining moments. Mikan set the standard for winning immediately. He led the Minneapolis Lakers to the championship in the NBL and the BAA, establishing professional basketball's very first true dynasty. So he led his team to 5 chips, and he created a dynasty, which that doesn't get talked about. NBA's true first dynasty. In 1950, he put on a scoring clinic by dropping 61 points in a single game against the Rochester. But the most iconic moment for him was in the 1952 NBA Finals, where Mikan played Game 1 with a broken ankle. He was playing through injury, and he had a heavy cast on it, and he still dominated the paint. He led the Lakers to another title, and that showcased his toughness for his entire career. But he won All-Star Game MVP in '53, and he had high scoring games, such as the 1950 scoring. He had a scoring exhibition, so he scored 61 points, against the Rochester Royals. But this was before the shot clock era, the pre-shot clock era, so there's no shot clock. Let's talk about his impact on the game and something known as the Mikan Drill. We'll talk about his legacy because no single player changed the rulebook more than he did, in my opinion at least. Mikan was so dominant under the basket that the NBA literally widened the paint from 6 feet to 12 feet. So the paint was more congested, but because of him, they had to increase the court. They had to widen the paint. This change is known as the Mikan rule, and to keep him further away from the rim because he could easily reach up and squat or block incoming shots off of the rim. The NCCA, the pretty much college basketball league, and the professional leagues had to invent defensive goaltending rules. So the goaltend was invented because of him. But furthermore, in 1950, the Fort Wayne Pistons, before they were the Detroit Pistons, they were terrified of Mikan, that they held onto the ball without shooting. So there was one game in 1950 where the opponent held onto the ball because they didn't want to give Mikan's team the magician, resulting in a famous 1918 game, so a low scoring game. That stall tactic directly forced the NBA to create the 24 shot clock violation. So the shot clock was invented because a team didn't want his team to get a position. The Mikan rule is a fundamental warm-up drill still taught in almost every basketball player today. You stand directly under the hoop, you step with your left foot, jump, and then lay the ball off the glass using your right hand. As the ball falls through the net, you catch it above your shoulders without letting it hit the floor. Rebound high, and then step with your right foot, and finish a reverse layup using your left hand on the opposite side. You repeat this fluid, continuous rhythm back and forth. It builds your hand-eye coordination. You touch near the rim, and you have great footwork. This is a direct reflection of how Mike dominated the paint. So Mikan Drill is essentially doing post hooks from the left side and the right side, from both sides of the paint, from both elbows of the paint. Let's go on to the conclusion. So to conclude, George Mikan was the fundamental blueprint of every legendary big man who came after him, from Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Shaquille O'Neal and even Hakeem Olajuwon, winning 7. Not sure about that, but winning 7 championships in 8 years across the NBL, BBA, and NBA. He just didn't conquer the game, but star power legitimized the newly formed NBA during the fragile early years. He was basketball's first true superstar, and his influence is still built into the lines of the court. The rules of the game today are based on changes made from him, so he was the pioneer. So here are the sources. Here are my primary sources: statistics and historical archives referenced throughout the presentation, including Basketball Reference, the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, and NBA official archives. These are the sources. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you do a deep dive. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop the comments down below.